Deadlock is a very intimidating game to learn. We know this. Learning all the characters, what they do, their counters, is a huge part of the experience. But so is picking a character that's right for you. However, some characters are more right than others. A big issue I've been seeing with a lot of new players flocking to the game is that because they don't know the characters very well, people end up picking very difficult characters to play before they have a full understanding of the basics. Today, I just want to talk about my top hero recommendations for new players and my top heroes that you should probably stay away from until you're more comfortable with the game. This list has nothing to do with any sort of meta or how good a character might or might not be after a patch. This is purely from the standpoint of their mechanics and how they operate in-game. I'm also not going to talk about the brand new characters since they're still being figured out. In no particular order, we're going to start with a character that is a good introduction to close-range combat, and that is Abrams. Abrams has historically been a very good character. He's very tanky, his shotgun is pretty good, and most importantly, his kit is very simple. Find someone, throw them into a wall, and punch him in the mouth. His combo is literally his 2 and then his 1. That's it. You find a target, you activate your Siphon Life AoE ability, and then you charge that target, slamming them into a wall, stunning them, and then punching them with a heavy melee while you lay into them with your shotgun. New players have not really mastered the art of parries just yet, nor are they really good with dealing with Abrams in general. Your stun will last long enough at higher boons that you are basically guaranteed to get a heavy melee off unless the person you slam has some sort of debuff reducing or cleansing item, or if you start punching too late. His 3 is a passive ability that increases your regen stats as you take damage, so that's not really anything you need to think about, and his ultimate is a great oh crap button that can be used to get out of a bad spot, or it can be used to initiate a fight, so if you find yourself poorly positioned, you can just try to make an escape. Not only is he new player friendly, but he tends to be pretty good at almost all ranks of play, so even if you devote a lot of time to learning Abrams, he's not going to just fall off a cliff down the road. If you're looking for a simple, close-range combat character, or you just want to get better with melee combat and being in the fray, it's really hard to go wrong with Abrams. I will put Billy pretty close as well, although his kit has a bit more going on, and you need to throw in a lot more light melees than Abrams does. But Billy is towards the new player-friendly section of heroes more than he is the please don't play these heroes section. Next up is another close-range character, but one that I think you should probably stay away from, and that is Mina. Mina's kit on its own isn't terribly complex. A close-range melee attack, a short-range teleport that you can activate twice, a passive that applies when you hit targets with your gun, and an ultimate that throws a bunch of bats at an area. However, she is incredibly fragile and requires more intimate knowledge of the movement mechanics in Deadlock. You'll most likely be getting stamina mastery at some point in addition to reducing the cooldown of her teleport so that she can move around a lot during combat. But you're very susceptible to things like knockdown and slowing hex, and if you don't know how to play against them, you're going to be in trouble. Being on the ground during combat should only happen when it's over or you're completely out of resources to use. As a result, she is not a character that I recommend new players start with, even though her gun itself is quite potent. You need to master being able to weave in and out of melee range during combat, popping in and out, and this is just not a skill most new players are really developing yet. There's a lot of muscle memory that you need to develop first when it comes to the base game before I think you should hop on Mina. Next is another recommended new player hero, and that is Wraith. Wraith also has a simple kit, although her 1 ability, the card throw, does have a bit more going on where you get to aim it with your mouse while it's still mid-flight. Some Wraith builds stack a bunch of spirit damage in the early game to take advantage of this burst on her cards, which can throw some people off, so I would get in some reps with the cards themselves just to make sure you know how they work. Otherwise, she has a medium range teleport, a buff that increases your rate of fire, and her ult is a simple spellcast that picks up an enemy, slams them into the ground, and then disarms them for a short time. Wraith is primarily built as a gun damage character. You want a bunch of orange items, and then you hold M1 in people's faces, and that's it. There is not a ton of finesse required outside of the cards, and she too gets an oh crap button with her teleport. However, because she has the potential of being a carry for your team, that means your team will often rely on you to be the primary slayer, and falling behind can mean that you're not able to provide that service. That being said, she's still a pretty simple character to understand that is generally pretty good, especially in the early ranks. A hero to avoid as a new player is Holliday. I think Holliday is one of the most difficult characters to play because she has so much potential in her kit, but it also requires a lot of game knowledge in order to use said kit. For example, her barrels hit for a good chunk of damage, but when used normally just by tossing them out onto the field, they're unlikely to find a target and or can just be avoided. One piece of tech involved with barrels is meleeing them immediately after casting to punch them in a specific direction and with much greater speed. Her jump pads also have a large amount of movement tech available to them, on top of her having insanely good movement potential. I'm not sure if it's the case right now, but pre-patch, a lot of high-rank players that I watch absolutely hated fighting against Holliday and found her to be ridiculously strong, and that's in large part because of her jump pads. However, newer players will not know how to maximize their potential because you're just not familiar enough with the game yet. Her 3 is a passive ability that requires headshots, and she uses a semi-auto weapon, so even her passive can be a struggle for some players, in addition to her primary weapon being so hit or miss. Her ultimate, the Spirit Lasso, grabs an enemy player and allows you to drag them anywhere you want, which usually means back into your team so you can kill them. She can literally make a fight a 6v5 before it even begins, especially if you combine the lasso with the jump pads. But there's 2 problems. Number 1, it's a skill shot, so if you whiff, you just lost your ult. And 2, even if you do grab someone, you need to rely on your team in later stages of the game to actually kill the person you lassoed. And if they're not paying attention or you don't communicate this, then it can be a bit of a waste. Or even worse, potentially putting an enemy in a spot where you don't want them. Holliday can be an excellent character, but she demands much more from you as a player, and if you're just starting to learn the game, you already have enough on your plate. A third new player-friendly character to try is Warden. Warden has a similar vibe to Wraith, except his kit is much more straightforward, like Abrams. His 1 throws a flask to slow down the enemy and sap their stamina, his 2 is a shield to speed you up, his 3 immobilizes an enemy player if they don't escape I think it's about 20 meter radius circle in time, and his 4 is a frontal cone lifesteal aura. So, you probably figure out his kit from the ability descriptions. You throw a jar, you shield yourself, you throw him in jail, you shoot him in the head. The reason Warden is good for new players, or people in the lower ranks, is because those people are generally not very good with their movement yet. His jail is not that hard to escape, but you can take advantage in 2 ways. Number 1, new players don't know movement very well, so they might get hit by this ability quite a lot. Or 2, you either bait an enemy into using movement and then throw them in jail, or if you hit with the flask and reduce their stamina, you can then follow it up with jail. Not only that, but an item like Slowing Hex is great to help assist getting people caught by his 3, and this gives you some practice with an active item, which new players desperately need. It's also a very cheap item, so it's not a big investment that you need to make. I will say that his ult is a bit weird though, and trying to time it can be a little awkward. It requires a 2-second cast, and usually everyone will just kind of run away from you as it's being cast. Not only that, but it scales with spirit damage, which you usually won't have a ton of. However, it gives you a ton of bullet and spirit resist, so, use it for that. This ability will take some practice to figure out when to use it. A lot of people tend to use it as a panic button, and while that works sometimes, you are literally helpless while it's casting, so just be aware of that. The third character I would avoid is the doorman. While Doorman is a very neatly designed character, his kit requires a lot of game knowledge and a lot of planning. His 1 isn't too complex and is what you'll mainly be using to poke at the enemy with in the early game, but even that has an extra mechanic in that you can shoot it to activate it early. Abusing this is key to the laning stage. His 2 is literally a portal gun, where you set up 2 doors that are portals. This allows him to escape bad situations, set his team up with good positioning, poking during the laning phase, and all sorts of other things. Used to be able to run the urn with him too, I don't think that's a thing anymore. His 3 is a pushcart that he sends out to knock enemies back and stun them, but is often used in combination with his portal door in order to send an enemy or enemies into terrible positioning, like onto a walker or into a waiting enemy team. But this combo requires a lot of game sense and a lot of game knowledge that most new players don't have yet. His ultimate throws someone into the hotel hallway and requires them to parkour their way to the exit, otherwise they take a ton of damage. However, I notice a lot of doormen using this ability in terrible ways, like when an enemy is on the verge of death already, or just using it without much of a plan. It also requires you to get in melee range, which is not always the greatest for the doorman. Combine this with a semi-auto weapon, and this makes Doorman incredibly tough to play, especially once the laning stage ends and the map opens up. I'm pushing 450 hours, I have 2 Doorman games, both of them went horrible, and I'm not in a place where I feel comfortable playing Doorman. I would avoid him for now. Number 4 on the recommended is 7. 7 is a farming machine because of his abilities. He's more of a gun spirit hybrid character as a result, but a lot of people play him pure spirit for reasons I'll explain. His 1 is an electric ball that will stop moving once it hits some kind of a wall, and this includes enemy heroes or jungle camps. This allows him to throw a ball at a jungle camp, maybe toss a couple of shots into the enemies, and just walk away, allowing for really fast farming. His 2 is a stun that activates after a short duration, and his 3 amps up his gun with a chain lightning effect, dealing extra damage. Very simple use case there. Finally, his ult just makes him explode with lightning and has a massive radius that grows over time, and you just are spewing out lightning for a really long time. As long as you're not on the ground when you activate this, it is basically always a threat to the enemy team. It has a set duration before it ends, but it lasts a really long time at later points in the match. But you can't do anything other than cast this attack while you're in the middle of it, other than throw a couple lightning bolts on the ground and very slowly move in the air. You can cancel it early though. 7 is good because new players tend to be pretty bad at getting souls, and being able to throw lightning balls at groups of enemies and have them all die super fast allows you to do so much more farming than a character like, I don't know, Calico. This means you get a lot of money. If you have a lot of money, you have a lot of items, and you are a big threat. You'll mainly be an ultimate threat, but you can be stopped though. Any kind of stun will stop you, which is why it's really important to be in a position where it's difficult to reach you. Knockdown will be your main enemy, which is an item, but you can counter this with a dispel magic of your own. Unstoppable is also another great item to help make sure you are staying in the air as long as possible. So, your goal is to get into a team fight, find a good place to pop your ultimate, use it, and hopefully everybody dies and you go back to farming or pushing lanes. A very simple kit, a simple ult, but still a ton of impact. Next on the do not play list, I am putting down Pocket. First off, Pocket starts with negative spirit resistance, which puts them behind right off the bat. Their kit has a lot of burst damage potential, but you need to know how to use it. Their 1 throws out a set of blasts that amplifies the damage Pocket deals for a brief time for each one that hits, so landing this is key to starting a fight on another hero. Their 2 sends out their cloak, which damages anything in its path, and you can teleport to its location while it's active. This can be used to get into fights, get out of them, or just used to farm. Their 3 puts them into their briefcase and makes them immune to everything, but you can't move until you come out, which happens after a couple of seconds. You do an AoE burst of damage when you do come out though. Finally, their ult puts a damage over time debuff on all enemies in a radius around them. This debuff lasts a long time, but it cannot actually kill any targets. It leaves them at 1 HP. Pocket too has a semi-auto weapon in their shotgun, although some people build gun Pocket, commonly referred to as Glocket. The reason Pocket is so tough is because their kit has a very high skill ceiling. The cloak and briefcase combo isn't the easiest sequence in the world to pull off. You send out cloak towards an enemy, you hit your briefcase, you hit teleport, which automatically brings you out of the briefcase, so hopefully the enemy gets hit by both. Plus, if you throw in cold front, that can add in some more burst on top of that, but hopefully you hit them with your 1 first to get the bonus damage. I hope you got all that. Their ult can also be tough to land in the first half of the match, and whiffing that really sucks. Pocket also usually builds the Majestic Leap item to get into the air for his abilities, which a lot of new players might not be comfortable using yet. They're similar to Mina, where you gotta know how to get in and out of danger because getting caught with no teleport or no briefcase is really bad, and knowing how to use these cooldowns optimally is key to playing Pocket. Their shotgun is very good though, and I like a more hybrid setup whenever I play them, although that's been rare for me recently. They just have a lot of decision-making skills that you as a new player probably have not developed yet. They're definitely lower on my do not play list compared to others, but it is still very easy to feed with Pocket. Finally, number 5 on my new player recommendation list, I think is Mo and Krill. Mo and Krill have one job: find a target and then use your ult on them. Their kit is otherwise designed to help them fulfill that goal. They have an AoE lifesteal, which keeps them very healthy in the lane, although they are a pretty big target, so they do need the help. They have a sand attack, disarming anyone caught in its path for quite a while. They have an oh crap button, where they burrow underground and gain movement speed, and you're just harder to hit. And their ult grabs a target, stuns them, and you punch them for a little bit. This can allow for picks on high priority targets, ending fights before they truly even start. I will say that Moe and Krill isn't as much of a killer compared to other characters I have mentioned. Their gun is fine, but they're more of a disruptor and tank, someone who helps initiate a fight and then relies on their team to follow up. That's nice because the pressure isn't on you to be getting tons and tons of kills. You're there to help set up. People are being conditioned very slowly to help a Moe and Krill as well when they hear them cast their ult because they know it can be a free kill. And trust me, getting hit by that ult is incredibly tilting and you are probably going to die. I do think Moe and Krill is more of an early to mid game champ as opposed to a late or super late game one though, but you do kind of end up being an ult bot for a good chunk of the game. Honorable mentions go to Haze and Infernus. Their kits are relatively simple as well, but there is a good amount of pressure to perform on these characters, especially Haze. A good Haze can just win games on their own, but one that isn't helping is way more devastating than other characters having a bad game. However, even if you have some of the worst laning phases of all time, Haze, with enough farming, will eventually hit a point where they are a complete menace if you do not end the game fast enough. There is an expectation that you will be the carry on Haze, maybe less so for Infernus, but it's still pretty up there. Finally, the last character to avoid, at least in this list, is... I'm torn between Paradox and Sinclair. Maybe even Calico too. Let's do Paradox and Sinclair, I'll keep it short. Paradox is similar to Holliday in that their ult is a skill shot and it needs assistance from your team in order to capitalize. Paradox's ult swaps places with your target, so it's great if you hit, but you also need to figure out a way to make sure that you don't die in the process. While their kit isn't terribly complex, there is a little bit more going on than some others. A bomb that you leave on the ground dealing damage, a wall that stops enemy bullets for a brief time, and a shot that can freeze enemies in place for a very short time. All good individually, but they all need to be combined to really maximize their potency. You could combo all of these skills perfectly as well with your ultimate and still come away with not as much as you were hoping for. On the other hand, we have Sinclair. Sinclair's main ability, his one, is a skill shot with several layers. First, it can be redirected once while in midair. Next, it deals more damage the longer it's been in the air, up to a cap. Third, your spectral assistant also shoots a bolt if she is out as well. And all of that means absolutely nothing if you can't land this attack. They're not super hard to land, but they're not easy either. Spectral Assistant shoots whenever you shoot, and they basically have aimbot, and you can switch places with her, which adds some teleport-like mechanics to Sinclair. You can turn everyone in an area into a rabbit. There's not as much to explain about that one. It's good, but it's crowd control. But the true Sinclair test is his ultimate, which steals the ultimate of the enemy hero that you target. So not only do you have to know what everyone's ults do, you gotta know who's to steal, you gotta get in range to do it, and then you gotta use it before the timer runs out. When you're more knowledgeable about what ults to steal and when to use them, this is great because the cooldown of Sinclair's ult is much shorter than the ultimate you stole. It's proportional. For example, stealing Dynamo's ult results in a 92-second cooldown for Sinclair when Dynamo's ult is normally a 220-second cooldown. But until you get really familiar with everyone's ults and the appropriate times to use them, your stolen ultimates may not have as much impact as you would like. Now, I don't make this video to discourage anyone from trying whatever characters they want. Rather, I make it because I've been seeing way too many new people hop on these advanced characters like Holliday and Doorman and having absolutely no idea how to play them when they already don't have a very good grasp on the game itself. The simpler characters are better while you're learning because you don't have to worry about so many things, but you can still be effective. You can focus on your macro game, you can focus on the game itself, rather than the character that you are playing. I'm sure there's going to be some varying opinions here, I know, but I feel pretty good about the list. Any characters not mentioned in here are just in between, but that doesn't mean that I think they're easy or they're very hard, right? Like, I don't think Calico is as new player friendly as Billy. I think Ivy is more new player friendly than Viper. Plenty of nuance to discuss, so feel free to speak up in the comments for things you do or do not recommend for people. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.